And the concepts that you talked about during that book talk event are still parts of our conversation. For example, Die with Zero. I just went on a trip to Korea. That was a last minute decision. And I was talking to my husband saying, it's not really the most practical decision because last minute flights are expensive. Should I really go for a week? And it's not like I have to go. Should I go? And interestingly, he was the one who looked at me and he said, Die with zero. Dr. J said die with zero, so let's do it. We don't know what tomorrow holds. It's not like we need to save $3 million for our future kids. Die with zero. And I thought it was so funny that he, out of nowhere, that stuck in his head and from that book talk that you did. And he used that in real life to basically coach me into feeling comfortable with the decisions that I was making.
And if you're listening, by the way, and you want me to come do a book event in your area and you want to set it up, listen to what Florence says.
Welcome to the Childfree Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners. Today's going to be a little different. We're going to talk about community and building friendships and what does it mean to be child-free and make connections with folks. And I got a friend I brought in who is doing some really cool stuff out in LA. Florence Wlodarski, who is the co-founder of Parallel, a first-of-its-kind social club designed exclusively for those who are living life without kids. Her and her husband, James, are dinks. They're embracing the lifestyle, but she's been doing some really cool stuff. We actually got to go out to LA and do a book event with her, all that. We're going to talk about that, talk about what she did with her club. But really, we're going to talk about how do you connect with other child-free folks and why does that matter? So Florence, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. I'm happy to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, so I gave a quick intro, but tell us a little bit about you and Parallel.
My husband and I live in Los Angeles. LA has always been home. And, I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to be a dink one day or a sink, right? Never had those plans. Life just unfolded the way that it unfolded. And so I met my husband in my early 40s, got married to some people's eyes a little bit later in life, right? And then decided, are we going to have kids or not? Started asking ourselves that question, put a lot of thought into that. And there's a whole journey we went through, but ended up several years ago deciding we are going to embrace the dink lifestyle. And then we started looking around and saying, well, where are all the other people who are living our lifestyle? Because when we talk about lifestyle, we realized it was very different from those of, our friends who are living the parenting lifestyle. First off, it was really hard to just even schedule something with them to go to brunch, go to dinner. And for us, when we wanted to live this big, robust life, which also meant having a big, robust social life, it became a challenge. And so we started Parallel Social Club as a way to identify others who are also living this lifestyle, who are in midlife, in the same life stage as us, those who wanted to meet new people and, go on this wonderful life journey together in community. And I think we'll talk about community. That's a big buzzword, connection, community post-COVID. It's something that a lot of people are looking for. And so we started this social club as a means to pursue that goal of creating community.
And let's be real, it's a whole lot easier in LA to find child-free folks than it would be here in downtown Nashville.
Yeah, true. We've got millions, probably more people than you do there.
Well, and there's different people picking choices. So, I'm deep in the South, it's how many kids do you have and what church do you go are the first two questions you get. Let's be real, there's a different feel out in California and the LA area.
Yeah, there is definitely a higher concentration of people who are single and in their when they've reached a certain age. You expect people in their early 20s to be single, but once you reach, mid 30s and above, across the country, most people are getting married and having kids. In LA and on the coast, right, New York, San Francisco, these bigger cities, you'll find a higher concentration of people who are kind of choosing their own path, maybe not living according to the standard life script that you talk about in your book. But you know what? Even in a city like Los Angeles, where there are millions of people who are in their 30s and 40s who aren't doing the parenting thing, you'd be surprised. It's kind of still tough to find people in this vast city. We have some geographical challenges too. For those of you who know Los Angeles, we are geographically, it's a sprawl. We're all spread out. And so we have these mini neighborhoods that people like to stick in. So even a city like this, people were having trouble finding each other when we're talking about child-free folks.
Yeah, finding people is a different thing. I mean, you've got a bigger pool, but how do you find them? And
yeah.
If you're a parent, I always joke we need like kind of a child-free country club, because if you're a parent, you go to the country club, you're all playing tennis together, or you go to the soccer game and, we're all soccer moms together. Like there's events, the band, whatever it is, there's a reason for people to get together. And then you make friends with your kids' parents, kids' friends' parents. And like, it's kind of a built-in network where, somebody asked me the other day, like, well, how do child-free people find friends? And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I've had a lot of luck, online communities. There's a lot of good folks that I know there. Interestingly enough, I have a lot of friends that are kind of like older men who maybe they have kids, but it's really not a priority anymore. They're in their 80s and like, I don't know how many grandkids I have. They come over every once in a while. But like, how do you find those close child-free friends? And it is an issue, which to me is like at the core of what you're trying to do with Parallel.
Yeah, it is an issue. And it's not just for the smaller cities across the country and across the world. I know that there are a lot of online communities that exist, and that serves its purpose, right? And you meet people from all over the country and all over the world through those Facebook groups, meetup groups, etc. However, there is something to be said about being able to meet in person with people that are in your vicinity, in your neighborhood, also living your lifestyle that is around your age, right? You put in all these different variables and it's tough to find. So for those people who are child-free, you have to put in more effort. You talked about all those other social containers, you've got the PTA, the Little League, all those other kind of built-in opportunities for parents. Well, for those of us who are non-parents, and when you're reaching about 30, 40, even in your early 50s, and all the other, let's say your peer group, but they are active in all those other networks that with other parents, then for those who are not parents, well, how do we connect with people who we can relate to, who we want to have conversations with on topics that are relevant to our lives, right? That is a challenge in any big city as well.
Hey, Child-Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. I highly encourage you to schedule a Child-Free Wealth checkup. During this time, you're going to get a couple of forms to fill out that include your life and financial plan. We'll review them, and then we're going to have a meeting and go through them with you. We're going to give you some advice and things to work on and talk through things to make your finances simpler so your life can be amazing. You can schedule yours by going to our website, childfreewealth.com, and clicking the Schedule Now button.
Yeah, and so if we're trying to put folks together that are living similar lives, how do you define it? This is one of those I've had a problem with, like the term child-free, childless, dink, sinks, brr. I know you have a process to get in, but like, do you pick people and be like, hey, do you really not have kids? Like, I mean, are they gone for the weekend? How do you do that?
Yeah. Because we know that there's a lot of identity tied to some of these terms like child-free, childless, we have deliberately decided to stay away from those terms. So we just say kid-free lifestyle, or those who are living life without kids, whether it's permanent, whether it's just right now, or, it just by choice or by circumstance. And so we have an application process, and during that process, of course, it's an online application, but we get on a Zoom call with every candidate, everyone who wants to consider joining our club, just to level set and let them know what we're about beyond what anyone can read on a website. The folks that we are bringing together come from all life circumstances. So we've got about a 50-50 split. Some are single and some are coupled off. We've got both sinks and dinks, and some of them are child-free by choice. Some are by circumstance. Some, for those that are single and let's say 42, they're just looking for their life partner and they're thinking, well, maybe there's a child in my future. But the thing that we noticed in LA was that regardless of your reason for why you are living the kid-free lifestyle, not doing the parenting thing, regardless, it's about a lifestyle. So we built this social club around a shared experience of living a certain lifestyle. And that is just not doing the parenting thing. And that's how we define it. Pretty simple there.
And if I get pregnant, do you kick me out?
We got asked that question a lot. So we actually put that in our FAQs on our website and in our member app. And we say, you know what? We're not going to draw a harsh line and say, okay, today you're out. But we say, you know what? Because we are a community for those people who are living a certain lifestyle, and that's our shared common experience. For those who become pregnant or become a stepmom, et cetera, we say that you will most likely, right, naturally opt out because your priorities will change. And that's the whole premise of the reasons why people are coming together in this social club in the first place, because it's about what we prioritize, what our conversations are about. So if you become pregnant, and then we know from society and all our friends who have become pregnant, they are really excited about that version of life. And so they'll naturally gravitate toward wanting to have those conversations. And they're probably going to find community in other spaces with other people that are going through a similar life experience. So we say, you'll probably there'll be some natural attrition.
That's fair. Now, if I'm part of the single crowd or, whatever it may be, is this like a hookup spot? Do we go find, I mean, it doesn't have to just be singles. I mean, come on, let's be real. We got some people in groups and poly and other things, but is that, I mean, when we hear adults getting together, it could be anything.
Yeah, that's so interesting. We have a comedy show coming up that we produce as a stand-up comedy show. And so I had sent an invite to somebody and she actually text messaged me this morning saying, is this a singles event or is this a networking event? And I said, neither. There will be singles in the audience. There will also be couples, right? There will be networking because that's natural when you get a bunch of people together. However, it's a social event. Right. That's where we leave it at. It's a social event. Now, we tell those that are single that find us, and they say, "Hey, are there other single people in the group? Because I'm a guy that I don't want kids, and so I want to meet a woman that also doesn't have kids, so we can align all those values or lifestyle, etc." And we say, "Hey, you might be able to find them within our social club, within Parallel, and if you meet someone to date." Wonderful. However, if you're approaching our community with the intention of scouting out a date or a life partner, we say, don't be that creepy guy or that creepy gal that's coming to all the events, hitting on everyone left and right. So that's not the vibe that we're creating. We want a very safe space, a warm and welcoming space, judgment-free. And in order to protect that vibe, we make sure that people understand that piece. And that's why this Zoom interview is important when we accept applicants into the club.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been married for 16 years, so I don't have a clue what dating's like nowadays, but I hear it's pretty hellish.
Yeah.
Especially if you're child-free. And I think there is another place, and it might not be yours, but for a child-free meetup, hookup group for dating or something I mean, people talk about doing those apps, but I get why you're trying to draw the line where you're drawing it.
Yeah, because there are other people who actually do want that safe space and they want to be able to come to a place and go to an event where they feel like, oh, it's my parallel family. What we're trying to do is build a social home, right? Everyone has different layers of social circles. You've got your work related stuff. You've got your business professional networking. You've got your book clubs that you participate in. You've got your yoga studio, your gym. There are so many different contexts in which we can meet people. And then, of course, the dating apps, that people are burning out on that. And so people are looking for real life experiences. Here in Los Angeles, we have in-person dating clubs or for singles popping up where they host in-person events because they're sick of swiping, right? Now, with that, we say we want to protect this space so that everyone feels comfortable because everyone is coming to approaching parallel from a different mindset, saying, I want to find my people. I want to find a sense of community. And so if someone comes into the community with this other mindset of, I want to find a wife or I want to find a husband, and I'm going to evaluate every community member at this event for that purpose, it creates a very different vibe.
And that's fair. And I just asked the question because I get these all the time. You're like, well, where do I find friends? And how do I date as child-free people? And it's good questions. And I don't know that we have answers. How do I build community, all that. So you talked about some of the events and I'm a little jealous because I get the emails of what your group's doing and like the comedy nights. And I just saw something like, I think it was a pickleball you're doing. Like what type of events do you put together?
Yeah, we have what we call, smaller format, more intimate events. For example, we have something called a Find Your Five dinner series where we bring together 5 or 6 different people and we cap that reservation at the restaurant so that we can have one table conversation. And the whole point of these types of gatherings is for people to really get to know each other and to go beyond small talk and to be able to have really substantive conversations about our lives, about what's going on in our society, about culture. Those have been really successful because that's where the true connecting happens. And then we have these bigger format social events where, we could have 10 people participating in an activity, or we could have 50, 60 people, 80 people. And these are more geared toward people who say, you know what? I want to elevate my social life. I want to have better experiences, quality experiences, and I want to add that to the fabric of my life. And so, but people are busy. They don't want to plan their weekend and plan these big events, and it takes a lot. We do all the heavy lifting. We'll plan all these curated experiences to help people level up their social lives, and then we'll curate these smaller format experiences so that people can build meaningful relationships. So we'll do anything from, a beach party to a potluck picnic to going paddle boarding in the marina because we're here by the beach in Los Angeles. And we mentioned the comedy show, but we also have speaker events. And that's where you came in, Dr. J, where, we're trying to do is every few months, bring in an expert or an advisor that has subject matter expertise on a topic that matters to our lives, because our overall mission is to help our members elevate how they do life in community. We want to bring resources to the table. And Dr. J, when you came out to LA to do that book talk, let me just tell you, people are still talking about it. Well, we're doing a book talk, a book club following that book talk that you did here in person. But people, will go to different events, and the concepts that you talked about during that book talk event are still parts of our conversation. For example, Die with Zero. I just went on a trip to Korea. That was a last minute decision. And I was talking to my husband saying, it's not really the most practical decision because last minute flights are expensive. Should I really go for a week? And it's not like I have to go. Should I go? And interestingly, he was the one who looked at me and he said, Die with Zero. Dr. J said Die with Zero. So what are we going to do with it? I mean, we can do it. So even if we need to pay the $500 more to pay for that flight, let's create that memorable experience. Let's do it. We don't know what tomorrow holds. It's not like we need to save $3 million for our future kids. Die with Zero. And I thought it was so funny that he, out of nowhere, that stuck in his head from that book talk that you did. And he used that in real life to basically coach me into feeling comfortable with the decisions that I was making.
Yeah, I always laugh because there are folks that use my name as either a curse or a benefit. Like well, Dr. J said I gotta, and I'm like, wait, I didn't actually say that, but go ahead, blame me. Like, I mean, we're not really talking YOLO. I mean, let's have a plan, but no,
Yes.
it's a balancing act. But we did do an event, and for those who are listening, so we were doing a book launch event when the book first came out in January, and that event got canceled because of the fires. Like, I mean, the whole area around the bookstore, even the bookstore, were like evacuated. And
Yeah.
I mean, like literally the fire was like Thursday came through and the event was Friday. Like it was pretty bad timing. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm never going to LA. But then we held another event after, and it was amazing to see. I don't know what we had, 40, 50 people in there.
Yeah.
Took over the bookstore and talked about child-free stuff. And it's interesting when you looked around the room, you kind of go, none of these people would normally be in the room together. Like
Right.
it just kind of like brought people together and they're having the conversation. And you saw people kind of going, oh, that's right. That does fit me, or that is where it is. And it's kind of weird as an author when you're like, hey, I'm going to do these book events. You don't know if anyone's going to show. Like, that's always the worry. Like, we had a party and nobody showed. Okay, great. Tell everybody kind of how that process came through, how you led it. I mean, it was really interesting. And if you're listening, by the way, and you want me to come do a book event in your area and you want to set it up, listen to what Florence says.
Yes, yes. Yes, for everyone in your audience. It's, we can listen to podcasts, we can read your book, we can read lots of different books. We can read stuff online. It's actually a very different experience to have an interactive event where you have an author sitting in the audience with you and with an audience and talking about these concepts. Why? Because you get to ask your questions in real time. We had a Q&A session afterwards. Also, you get to kind of feel the energy around the room. You get to hear from the author, right? So we heard Dr. J talk about a lot of the concepts that he talks about in his podcast. Now, someone could have just sat on their couch and listened to the podcast or read the book, right? I'm telling you, it's a very different experience when you're in a room at a book talk event, because you get to sense and see how the other people in the room are reacting to the different concepts that are being spoken of by the author. And I was observing, I was merely the moderator. So while you were talking, Dr. J, I got to look around the room and see people's reactions. People smiling, people nodding their heads. At what point did they look to their neighbor and whisper something? Because that level of engagement is also very telling. It's very insightful. And so for me, leading Parallel Social Club and trying to understand this demographic of who we are to better serve our members, I need to keep my listening ear open and, keep attuned to what is resonating. And what I thought was interesting about that book talk was that afterwards, there were people who not only took away the direct things that you were saying to apply to their own lives, but they were saying, for especially for some people who were in their late 30s and early 40s, they said, yeah, this is great stuff for me. But what I was thinking about while sitting there was my parents. Do they have an estate plan? Do they have power of attorney worked out? What is their long-term care? Am I their long-term care and nobody told me? That sort of thing. Do I understand what my parents' finances are? And so there were several people that came up to me afterwards and said, oh, wow, I have a lot to think about. And that just triggered so many different areas of my life. And it wasn't just about their own lives. It was about their family and how they could better support their parents. And so there were a broad range of realizations, I would say, and learnings that really helped people. And that's why I say to this day, we're sitting here talking in early April. And, this happened, when was it? February, right? People are still talking about these concepts because the stuff in the book really touches on life planning. And it's a self-help book, right? And it touches on topics that are all relevant to all of our lives. And so we could talk about this stuff forever. So now we've got our fourth book club meeting coming up soon. And we're now getting into the nitty gritty of the finances stuff. Perfect timing for when the stock markets are a little bit rough. And I would say the learnings from that experience, sitting in person, talking to your neighbor, and after the book talk, talking to other people about what you just heard, that was a really valuable aspect of having an in-person event.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description.
Yeah, and we'll link in the show notes. We got some video from there. We got some photos. You can see some of that cool things. It was just really nice to get together with your people. Like, which is like half of it was social, like the Parallel Social Club, and half of it was just random people. This is Zibby's bookstore. They advertised it. But it was just kind of like, I feel okay in this room.
Yeah.
Which in this political world, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And you know what? I noticed also in that room, Dr. J, there were a few people in their 20s. A lot in the critical mass of people were in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And there were a surprisingly good number of people even in their 60s and 70s. They're not part of Parallel, but they came in through bookstores' email list. They saw the topic, they saw the book, they saw Dr. J that you were coming in, and they were child-free and in their 60s. And they came in and did you notice during the Q&A, they were the ones who were asking the questions, because these topics about long-term care insurance and what should I do with my, these financial topics were really much more acute for them, right? For the people in their 30s, maybe they're thinking, oh, I still have some time to plan. But if you're in your upper 40s, 50s, 60s, I mean, you're in it, right? So it was really great to see the age range of the audience that was interested in these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have you give a little bit of advice to people. So a lot of people are like, hey, I want to create a community. I'd like to bring people together. I'd like to host some of these events maybe. Like, what advice would you give to people like, I'm not in LA, but I'd like to do a meetup group in Denver or something?
Yeah. I would say start. I had thought about it for about a year before I started. I was looking and, I said, where are they? And we thought about, do we go? I went on Bumble, BFF. Went on meetup.com to explore to see, are there groups out there? And if you don't have any of those groups, those in-person groups in your city, start one. Right. And I started on meetup.com and we started a group, and we had a very mini kind of screening application process to make sure that people were indeed child-free and they knew what this was, or child-free, childless, doing the no kid thing. And we had about, 300 people who signed up, but Meetup, it wasn't a space that was conducive to our evolving mission. And what I discovered was that events are great. They're a great place to start. But if you want to build a community, it takes a little bit more effort. And so that's why we built Parallel. But for those people who are in these cities, if your idea is, I just want to meet people who are like me, living my lifestyle, go out there and make the effort. Sign up for a meetup group. There are a lot of meetup groups that are available across the country, actually. Check and see, because it's a great place to start. And if you don't find something that you like or that you're vibing with, then perhaps you can start a group yourself on Eventbrite, on Meetup, or get a couple of your friends that are in, that you can relate to, and word of mouth can travel. But I would say it's going to take effort, because adult friendships are hard in general, right? And then you layer on some of the other lifestyle choices that we've made, and it's extra hard because we talked about this. There isn't that kind of built-in network that can serve as starting points for us, like a Little League or our kids' schools. right, to meet other parents. It takes a lot more effort to go out and seek out those who are going through or your similar life experience. You can always sign up for Parallel too. We will be launching a virtual membership tier because nothing beats that. However, if that's not available, at least there can be a Zoom call, maybe once or twice a month, that you can participate in and to meet your people who are in other cities. And I say that's a second best option. We provide it. We will be providing that option. And there are other groups out there if you look and make that effort.
So where can they find you if they want to join Parallel?
The easiest place is our website, parallelsocialclub.com. People can sign up for our email list, subscribe, and that's where we don't spam. That's where we send out notifications about what we're up to. About twice a month, we'll send out a newsletter with information that's helpful to our lives, to help us live our best lives, and also notifying people of the various events. And then, of course, when we make that big announcement to start our virtual tier, we want to welcome people across the country and across the world to come join us. And if there are opportunities, these events and groups in your city that I hear about because I have my ear to the ground, that I'm happy to share those with people. So I can use me as a resource. I'm here. I'm thinking about community and in this space. So if there's a resource that I can share to help your listeners improve their lives and their social well-being, I'm happy to do it.
That's fair. We'll include all that in the notes and appreciate having you here.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate having this conversation with you.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Childfree Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.